Why the human brain still struggles with women in power. Imagine two people walk into a room, both confident, both intelligent, both clearly in charge. One is a man, the other is a woman. Strangely, the room reacts differently to each of them. Not consciously, not intentionally, but differently. People interrupt the woman more, they question her decisions more, they describe her as aggressive instead of strong. And this pattern appears in offices, politics, classrooms, and even online. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This reaction isn't just cultural. Part of it is neurological. Because the human brain evolved in a world where power looked very different from today. For most of human history, leadership meant something very specific: physical strength, protection, dominance. Thousands of years ago, the people who led tribes, armies, and early civilizations were usually men, not necessarily because they were smarter, but because survival in prehistoric environments often depended on physical competition and warfare. Over generations, the human brain started associating certain visual signals with authority: height, deep voices, broad shoulders, traits statistically more common in men. Our brains learn to make instant leadership judgments using these signals. Psychologists call this thin slice decision-making, rapid judgments made in milliseconds. The problem? The brain never updated its software. Fast forward to modern society. Leadership today rarely depends on physical strength. Running a company, leading a country, or managing a team requires intelligence, emotional regulation, strategy, and communication. Skills that are not gender-dependent. Yet the brain's ancient shortcuts are still active. When people see a male leader, their brain's expectations and reality often match. But when they see a woman in the same position, the brain experiences something called cognitive dissonance. Two ideas clash: leader and woman. Not because women aren't leaders, but because the brain's pattern recognition system is still using ancient templates. And when patterns don't match expectations, the brain becomes more critical, more suspicious, more likely to question authority. This creates what researchers call the double bind. When a woman in power acts confident and assertive, the same way a strong male leader might, people sometimes perceive her as cold or aggressive. But when she acts warm and collaborative, people may see her as less authoritative. Either way, she is judged more harshly. It's a psychological trap created by conflicting expectations. Be strong, but not too strong. Be kind, but not too soft. Male leaders rarely face the same contradiction. You can see this pattern in politics. When leaders like Angela Merkel governed Germany for over a decade, she was often described as calculated or emotionless. Meanwhile, leaders like Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand were praised for empathy, but sometimes questioned for toughness. Yet both leaders successfully managed crises that challenged entire nations. Their leadership styles were different, but effective. The real issue isn't performance, it is perception. Another reason the brain struggles with women in power is visibility bias. Historically, powerful women were rare in many societies. That means the brain has fewer examples stored in memory, and the brain loves familiarity. When we encounter something common, our brains process it quickly and comfortably, but when something is rare, the brain slows down, it analyzes, questions, doubts, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. It's the same reason people once reacted strangely to female doctors, pilots, and engineers. Today, those roles feel normal because the brain has finally adapted. But there's another layer to this story. Power itself changes how people are perceived. Research shows that people instinctively expect powerful individuals to show dominance. Dominance signals include direct speech, confidence, decisiveness. Historically, these behaviors have been labeled as masculine traits, so when a woman displays them, some observers unconsciously interpret the behavior as unusual. Not wrong, just unexpected. Again, the brain is simply reacting to patterns it learned long ago. However, something interesting is happening in modern society. The brain is slowly rewiring itself. Every time people see women leading companies, running countries, directing films, or commanding scientific teams, the brain updates its internal database. Each example creates a new pattern, new expectations, new normal. Over time, the mismatch between leader and woman disappears. We've already seen this happen with other roles. There was once a time when female astronauts seemed impossible. Then Sally Ride became the first American woman in space. Now the idea barely raises an eyebrow. Because once the brain sees something enough times, it stops treating it as unusual, but progress isn't always smooth. The brain's old wiring doesn't vanish overnight. It fades slowly, generation by generation. which explains why younger audiences often react very differently to women in leadership compared to older generations. Their brains were trained in a different environment, different examples, different expectations. So when people ask why society still struggles with women in power, the answer isn't simple. It's not just culture, it's not just politics. Part of the answer lives inside the human brain itself. A brain built for survival in ancient environments, a brain that learned patterns thousands of years ago, and a brain that is only now starting to catch up with the modern world. The good news? The brain is incredibly adaptable. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire itself based on experience. Every time people see capable women leading effectively, that wiring changes, slowly, quietly, but permanently, which means the real question isn't whether the brain can accept women in power. It's how long it takes for the brain to realize something it should have known all along. Leadership was never about gender. It was always about ability.